We are live on Zoom and Facebook. Take it away, Leo.
Great, thank you, Jason. Hi, everyone. My name's Leo Chi. I'm Linda Hopkins' District Director for the 5th District here in Sonoma County. And we're really glad that you're joining us tonight to learn more about the Meredith Pier project. Tonight, we're gonna have our supervisor, Linda Hopkins, give a bit of an introduction, and then it'll be followed by Caroline Judy, the head of General Services, and then Mike Volatile and Michelle Ling, also with General Services, to talk more about the details of the project. And we also have Peter O'Brien with their real estate division here. There will be a chance to ask questions at the end of the presentation. So we're really glad that you're able to join us tonight, and this will be available after the fact on Linda's Facebook. So if you have friends who missed this, they can always view it later. Thanks. With that, Linda, do you want to jump in and welcome our group? We've got 22 attendees in Zoom right now.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And I also want to say a thank you to every single Bodega Bay resident who reached out and actually, shared their opinions on this project and really, quite frankly, demanded change from us. And we have responded as local government. It was a multi-step process. Last year to secure funding to begin the permitting process, working in collaboration with the Coastal Commission. And this year we were able to secure the capital sort of fund in order to actually go about decommissioning the buildings and the structures on the pier. This is a roughly $1.1 million project. So this is a big deal. And I recognize that, for a lot of folks, this has a little bit of a mixed emotion, right? There is the sense of history that the Meredith Wharf brought, and a lot of people have shared their feelings and their memories of what this meant to them. On the other hand, we have to recognize that this is a hazard. We have actually seen debris falling into the bay, and of course, unfortunately, folks have trespassed on the property, and it presents a safety hazard to the public as well. So we're going to be talking tonight about the process going forward for demolition, and also maybe touch a little bit on potential paths forward for what will remain. Are there opportunities for community-based art for commemoration of the historical significance of what the Meredith Wharf meant to Bodega Bay? So with that, I'm going to hand it over to the our amazing Director of General Services, Caroline Judy. And I just want to say thank you to Caroline and to all of her staff. And I want to say that, you might, hopefully this will come across later in the presentation, but the General Services staff is genuinely excited about this project. They have been pouring their hearts and their souls into this. Working to make sure that the contractor is there, that we're going to be communicating with the public. They're really excited to share information at tonight's town hall, and also to talk about some community-driven projects that we might be able to incorporate some of the feedback from the community. So with that, I will hand it over to Caroline.
Caroline, I'm having trouble hearing you. I think you're showing as unmuted, but I don't hear you. Uh-oh. It could be a computer thing. Michelle and I had this yesterday. Any idea how to get your mic?
You have to go to that, I think that up caret on the lower left of the screen where the speaker, the microphone is, and I think you can connect it with the computer.
We can't hear her. Caroline, sometimes if you turn off your video, maybe you can hear, then you'll be able to speak. No, that worked yesterday.
Oh.
Sign language?
Well, Caroline, do you want to dial in on the phone? You had said that you might need to anyway because of bandwidth, or do you want us just to jump to Mike and then we can fit you in right before Michelle talks about the community process? Mike, do you want to jump in? I think it makes sense.
Yeah. Sure, let's.
Linda, does that seem like
just
the way to
get-
go? Let's just have Mike jump in and then Caroline can talk a bit higher picture after Mike
Get
does.
right to the meat and potatoes. So thanks for coming, everybody. My name is Mike Volatile. I am the project manager for this project. We have been about a year in the planning, and as Supervisor Hopkins noted, we were really anxious to get this going. I think we've spent more time planning, and when we get this thing actually started, it'll be amazing how quick it'll actually go. So we'll be done before we can bat an eye. Why don't we just roll through the slides, and I will try and cover as much of the information as I can. As I mentioned, I am the project manager for the project. My background is in specialized demolition and hazardous materials abatement. I've been 30 years in my career doing complicated projects, and this is no less complicated. What you see here is a couple of the drawings that are from our drawing set. We went through, like I mentioned, a very thorough investigation getting ready for the design for this project, and we were able to determine that the original construction was built on fill material, and the white portion that you see on your screen is a very heavy structural concrete slab. And what that allows us to do is carry out most of the demolition from the land side of the pier, and we'll be able to actually drive trucks and heavy excavation equipment onto the pier and kind of reach in to the perimeter of the building and kind of pull it in, and it's what's known as implosion. We're not going to explode anything, but we're just going to kind of pull it in and safely load it on trucks and get it off-site. So what we plan to do is start from, like I mentioned, the front of the building, and then work our way back as far as we can go, loading trucks and getting rid of the debris. Next slide is going to show a traffic overview. You can see our project there in yellow. We're going to back trucks right up to the building and take the direct path out to the highway and hit the road. The challenge here is the two businesses that are either side of us, and we have built in a measure of, how do I say, just harmonious living between the two operations. So the contractor is actually going to dedicate 2 workers that will do nothing but traffic and parking control. So we want to be able to keep everybody safe. We want to be able to make sure we're not having accidents, and anybody who wants to visit the businesses can do so safely. And we'll have an organized way to get patrons in and out, and at the same time conduct our demolition operation. The demo is scheduled to take place during regular hours. We're going to get a 7 o'clock start, and that should give us a couple of 3 hours before the businesses even open up. So we'll get quite a bit of work done, the first part of the day. We're not going to be working on weekends, and we're not going to be working on holidays. So that's the plan for right now. The signage you see is somewhat conceptual. It's really up to the contractor to develop a traffic control plan. He's the one responsible for the movement of trucks in and out of the project site. And he right now is developing his pre-construction submittals, and I should be receiving those here within the next week. Next slide shows an overview of the parking. Now, please, this is out of my feeble brain. The parking spaces, the striping does not exist. What I wanted to show here is kind of an overview of what might be a parking arrangement. And just to show the interaction between the demolition, exiting and ingress, and the business patronage. So I believe we'll be able to get the public in and out safely. The black line that you see there, the black dotted line, is a approximate location of the construction fence, and the red areas show an exclusion zone. Now, don't take a ruler and measure those. What we're hoping to do is maybe get about a 10-foot buffer around the building itself. I estimated about 18 parking spaces for the businesses. It could be plus or minus, 1 or 2 spaces. Right now, there is no parking organization per se. People kind of get the urge for taffy and they whip in and park any way they want and get their taffy, and then they're out. So there really isn't much of an organization in terms of parking. We're hoping that we can get a little bit of a handle on that while we're on site doing the demolition. Next slide. One of the control measures we're going to employ is ambient air sampling. And the reason for this is because there's 2 reasons. Demolition is kind of a messy job inherently. The contractor is required by law to have no visible emissions from his demolition operation. He must keep all the dust levels down and use water misting methods during the demolition. What we're going to do is I've got a third-party monitoring firm that'll be on site full time. They will collect downwind samples, and there's 2 types of samples that we're going to collect. One is a particulate sample on a filter that'll be analyzed in a laboratory, and then the little gray box you see is a real-time aerosol monitor that will give us a reading of airborne particulate right there on the spot. The red X's that you see are just, again, my feeble mind approximating where we might be locating air monitors. It's really up to the discretion of the third-party monitoring firm as to where he feels the locations would be most effective. The blue area you see there is where we anticipate the prevailing winds in the afternoon. Typically, winds will pick up a little bit in the afternoon. We have put a restriction on the contractor that if winds get to be too high, he is to stop work, and we're not going to, continue unless the wind speeds die down. So we've got quite a bit of controls in place, and I think we've got a pretty good handle on keeping the public safe and the contractor's housekeeping in order. Next slide is the water side of the building. We will have a debris net underneath the pier and around the pier, and along with a floating boom around the perimeter. So the idea is to capture any debris that might get away from us. The contractor will have a small skiff where he'll run around the pier and pick up any debris that might get away from us. We don't anticipate that happening, but it's just another measure of control that we want to impart on the project. Next slide is our schedule. So I mentioned before, we have a year of planning and 3 weeks of work. So we're hoping, or I'm very confident that it'll go by fairly quickly. The bottom 2 bars or 3 bars are probably the most important, and that's the start of the hazardous materials abatement, which will be October 5th. It'll precede the hard demolition by about a week. We have a licensed and certified abatement contractor that will come in and remove any hazardous materials from the building that he can safely access. And then he will be retained on the project site through the duration of the demolition. And the reason for that is it's almost inevitable that we're going to find stuff we didn't know about. And when we do, we are going to be prepared. We will have an abatement contractor there to handle that material, package it properly, and properly dispose of it. And hopefully, if all goes well, by the end of October, we will have a completed project. The building is really what we're demoing, and then any deteriorated and damaged and dilapidated materials are also being removed. We are going to leave anything that is essentially stable. And right now that includes the heavy concrete deck that I mentioned, and most all of the pilings that are embedded into the bay floor. So that's the plan. And I think I'm turning it now over to Michelle.
Hi, actually, Caroline, do you want to say a few words before I go into the outreach plan? Or not. She can, maybe we'll.
Yeah. There.
Caroline, do you want to try your other device?
How about now?
Oh,
Oh, yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. I think we're gonna have an echo, so let me try to address that. There. Can you hear me okay on the phone here?
Yes.
Sounds good.
Good. All right. So I just wanted to say, thank you so much to the team. It's always a big team effort to try to work on any project, but Mike Volatile and Michelle have done an excellent job, and a lot of collaboration with Supervisor Hopkins' office. So thank you for her leadership last year to get funding for this project. We are very excited about it. We've got some interesting things that Michelle's going to talk about here coming up, and in terms of not just completion, but our outreach here with the community. So with that, I'm just going to stop there. But I do hope that the community is as excited about this project as we are.
Okay, thank you, Caroline. This couldn't have happened without Caroline. She's, hi everyone, I'm Michelle, and I do a number of things, but communication is one of the things, and I'm in charge of outreach and communication for this project. When we started working on things, we kind of had, this is kind of a range of some of the things that we're hearing in relation to the project. I think that it's the kind of thing where people have known that the pier is there and it's dilapidated, but until the big trucks come, it wasn't really real. And so now that it's coming, there's concerns, there's concerns about traffic, the environment, and there's also just a lot of curiosity about the building. The president of the Chamber of Commerce was talking about how, they field questions about it every day. And so we think that although we're tearing down the Cannery building, we still want the history and the heritage of that spot to be, maintained in some way. So our points of contact, to outreach to the various different groups who are interested are, we're having a virtual town hall. I think once the big trucks start coming out, we may get a new crop of people that are interested, and we may have another town hall, but we will set up a website. I call it a la Shanae. All of our major projects have, a website with the map and the timeline and updates. We'll have a social media page that will feature some of the projects, some information about the area and about the pier itself, and then also about the project and the timeline, and then also updates as we go through. I'm planning to put out some on the fence area of the front. We're going to have large signs because I think that it is a huge curiosity. People will want to know. People who are going by will want to know what's going on here. And I'm planning to get really big signs in front that will hang in front of the chain link fence that can tell people a little bit about what Meredith Pier was and what we're doing and how they can find out more information. We'll make a version of a brochure or a handout flyer that we can place at businesses and the visitor center and, places around the area. I've been in touch with the Chamber of Commerce and the Historical Society. They've been super generous and full of stories and information. It's a really, really rich history that I think will really enhance what is already also a really cool project, kind of Discovery Channel cool, because we're just going to be munching up this huge pier, and I think it'll generate a lot of interest. And I'm hoping that we can get some, interesting photos and get some great social media. And one of the most exciting things about it is that, although we're planning on the demolition to be over in a relatively quick fashion, we do think there'll be this concrete pad after that, and it'll be kind of a blank slate that's hopefully a focal point for the community to think about what you might want, in that spot and on the coast and in that area in the future. We've engaged with Creative Sonoma, which is a county agency that focuses on art, to talk about something particularly like the possibility of public involved art or outreach after the demolition is over. The money that we have and the focus that we have, particularly for the project, is focused on demolition and making this pier safe, but we don't want it to just disappear and have nothing left. So we want to have something that kind of, says something that is a nod to the rich heritage of the place, says something about our cool project, and then suggest something about the future. So we're really excited about it. I think, we've been in close contact with people, and I've gotten a lot of enthusiastic responses from members of the community who have worked there, who have been around for a long time. So we're looking forward to being involved.
Great.
That's the presentation.
Somebody asked that we put the timeline back up on the screen.
Okay. Let me get that back up.
And then I see a question here asking, why are we leaving the piers? And I guess I need a little clarity what you're referring to as far as piers? Are you referring to the piling that are driven down into the pier or into the base of the
Out here.
bay? And the reason we're leaving those is because they're fairly stable. They're not hazardous in their present state. They're not dilapidating, and to remove them would be more intrusive to the natural environment and the habitat. So it's best to leave those leave those be.
Mike, what is the total budget of the project again?
It's a $1.1 million project. And it basically buys us the removal of the building and any of the decking that you see that is basically falling apart into the bay, which is quite a bit of it around. Yeah, if you look around the southern side of the building, and then the open area in the back. So one of the plans, we do plan on putting a fence that secures the pier after we're done, so that people, won't go out onto the pier and create more of an unsafe situation.
So if there's anybody in the audience who would like to ask a question, I mean, you certainly can use the Q&A functionality that some of you are using, but you can also raise your hand and we're able to unmute you so that you're able to ask your questions. So whichever you prefer. For the call-in people, you can press *9 to raise your hand. For those using Zoom, you can do it at the bottom of your screen.
Do you know what we're going to call this debris netting? The Pier Brazier. Sorry, I couldn't help,
It's my slow.
Getting late in the day, I thought it was funny,
So there's a question in the Q&A from Steve Hecht. Any renderings of what it will look like when complete?
We don't have anything developed as of yet. Right now, most of the pier is very unstable and unsafe. And so all of the photo, like the photo you see here, was taken from a drone out in the water. And, we're not able to really even access this side of the pier from the land. The only photos we can get is from the water side, remotely like this. I guess it's kind of left up to the imagination of what it would look like. The building footprint itself is about the size of the thick concrete slab. So everything to the south and west of the building is lightweight concrete on wood deck or just exposed wood deck.
Mike, I don't see any questions right now, but I was curious, is the schedule very dependent on weather at all? For example, if we were to get some earlier rains, does that impact the timing of the work being able to be performed, or can it happen in any weather condition within reason?
Well, basically, we will operate in any weather. In fact, water is our friend. The contractor will contain any water on the land side and control the water that he uses to keep the dust down. But if we have just naturally occurring fog or light, showers, that actually kind of works to our benefit. We are mindful of as I mentioned before, high winds. This is kind of the season where we get high winds. Usually they're coming from the east and north direction. The prevailing winds for this site are from the north and west direction, but winds are unpredictable. They could shift, and that's one area where we're going to keep a close tab on.
Hey, Mike, it's Peter. One question that people may have is the impact on Pacific Coast Highway and how many trucks you see coming and going every day onto the highway and how that will be managed.
Well, the contractor is going to be the one managing that. The basic process for demolition is to, we're going to kind of fold the building in to itself. And then the hazmat crews will take care of any, materials that we will uncover during that process. And then he is basically going to, with a excavator machine, load the debris into the back of a truck. The truck will cover the load and then drive off. We're figuring probably 2 to 3 truck loads a day.
Great, thanks.
But that's gonna vary. So it won't be consistent. There may be days where we have no truckloads and we're processing debris, or there may be days where we might have a few more than that.
Mike, that was one of the questions of the 2 that are up right now. The other question from Ed is, will there be any remediation of the bay planned from all the toxic debris over the last 17 years? Is that something that any of you can speak to?
Well, one of the things that we've
Oh, and someone was suggesting if we can hide the screen, then people can see the speakers.
Oh. Okay, so can everybody see that?
There you go.
So the question was, any pre-existing debris that might have sunk down into the bottom of the bay. I've actually walked around that pier during low tide. And I'd have to say there isn't a lot of material that has that I've seen sunk to the bottom of the bay, but the contractor will be responsible for picking up debris that he can safely access. So that will be in his scope of work. After the contractor's done, we're going to do a bioassessment survey, and that's something that we're required to do by our permit with the Army Corps of Engineers. So we'll do a bioassessment. We're not able to do it before we start work because of the just the condition of the pier, but after we're done, we're going to do a biological survey.
Great. There's another question up that's pretty specific from Peter Rooney. Have you made contact with the Bodega Bay PUD about abandoning the water and wastewater connections?
Yes. Yeah, we've incorporated that in our scope. There's a septic system on site that we are planning to abandon. And then the water hookup, we will cut and cap. It goes to the building.
So I'm not seeing other questions up. I mean, is there anything that we're able to add in terms of sort of the next steps related to the work? I know, Michelle, you talked about the possibility of having some different options for the remaining kind of deck that will be there. But is there any thought to sort of the water side, or what limitations are we facing there?
Somebody has just asked who owns the concrete pad, and it's the county that owns. And the scope of work for this demolition is, really limited to the demolition. But I think that there is so much of potential just in this space. I mean, this little slice of paradise. One of the things that in the coastal meeting that we had yesterday was so many members of the community talking about the really dramatic changes that have happened just in the last year due to COVID, with so many more visitors and so much more traffic. And I think that, this is part of the Tidelands area. This whole space is something that could be a focal point to kind of let the community start to think about strategically what are we going to do with this piece of the coast, and how do we want to be stewards of the land, have visitors here, share the space, but also protect the space. I think, there'll be a lot of interest. It's an interesting spot as it is, as a dilapidated building. People ask about it, and I think it'll just grow with interest. And it's a wonderful opportunity, actually, to get people, more involved.
Right. Let's see. So Norma J is just wanting to confirm. So last night you said there would be 3 truck trips per day and 3 flaggers managing traffic flow on Route 1. Did you reiterate that, Mike? I think you were talking.
Yeah, we're estimating 2 to 3 trucks a day. And what I mentioned earlier, it could be, maybe 1 or 2 more, or it could be, we might have no trucks leaving a day. It depends on the contractor's progress and how he processes his, his demolition. We have to segregate certain things while we're there. We do have hazmat crews on site, so if we run into surprises, then we naturally have to stop the the shipment, the progression, and deal with that. So it's it's an estimate.
Great. Well, so if there's any other questions out there, please go ahead and take that opportunity to raise your hand in the Zoom app, or *9 to do that if you're phoned in. Let me see if there's any other topics that we want to make sure we cover. I think if anybody else who's on the panel wants to speak, please go ahead. But I did want to make sure that people are aware, you can always write into the District 5 office to Linda and our team here at district5@sonoma-county.org. So if you're watching this video after the fact and you weren't able to ask live, you can again email us at district5@sonoma-county.org. And I know that Michelle will be working to get the specific website up. So once that's up, then that'll be another way that you can reach the project team directly. There's 2 questions up. One is asking about gallery view on Zoom, and I'm not sure if that's just sort of a back-end control. And then someone had a question for Linda. As far as use of the space, please remember all the traffic and infrastructure problems we have here. And that's from John Doolittle. And I know you've been hearing about traffic during key weekends today. And so just another reminder from the community about how important it is to keep that in mind.
Absolutely. And I don't know if Caroline, if you want to talk a little bit more about potential future uses of the space or touch on that. Obviously, we acknowledge that there is a significant constraint on parking and access, but if you have any thoughts, love to hear them.
Hi, can people hear me now? Trying to make sure that I can be heard. Yes. Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, I as the supervisor, I'm sure has talked further with the community. You know, we're very interested in trying to promote coastal access as much as possible. We've talked a lot about, you know, the trail, the Bodega Bay Trail. So there are opportunities in the future. You know, our initial focus here is getting down this eyesore, this hazardous facility. But we do want to look to the future, and here are some of the community's ideas about how we could potentially use this site going forward. So very excited about that, and hope that we get some feedback from the community about how best to honor the site's history, as well as looking forward to the future. So thanks for that, Supervisor. Yeah.
All right, well, I mean, we don't need to keep people any longer than needed. So just if there's any final words, because right now I don't see any hands raised or further questions. So I think that's a testament to a strong presentation and hopefully general community positive feelings about what's going forward. If you do have concerns in the community that you want to share with us, of course, just call or email and let us know so that we're aware of it.
I have spoken to quite a few people already, and you know, I must say everybody is extremely understanding and cooperative, and I really appreciate that. And like I mentioned, you know, demolition is not an easy task, even under the best of circumstances. And here we have some inherent challenges, and I really do appreciate everybody's participation and help on this.
I just want to add to what Mike said. We've been talking with property owners and the tenant for over a year, and we really appreciate from the real estate side their cooperation in allowing the county to cross their property in order to demolish the pier. And the owners and the tenants appear very excited about getting rid of the old cannery and the opportunities to come.
Well, I know we're super excited that this is happening and on the timeline that it is. I know Linda didn't mention it, but you know, I think it was July that we were pushing to make sure that this project was able to be prioritized, even though a lot of the budget decisions were being delayed till September. So I'm really thrilled that we were able to kind of stick to the schedule that was planned. So I really want to thank everyone for being here. Linda, any final words, or Caroline? Otherwise, we're gonna call it a night.
Just thanks everyone for coming, and always feel free to email us if there are any questions or suggestions on the future of the site. So take care, everybody. Have a good night.
Super. Bye. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate the community involvement.